Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Joan Didion, the eminent journalist, author and anthropologist of contemporary American politics and culture, a singularly clear, precise voice across the multitude of subjects for more than 60 years, has died at her home in Manhattan, New York. She was 87. The cause of her death was Parkinson's disease, according to Paul Bogaards, an executive at Didion's publisher Knopf. Known for her pioneering blend of the personal and political in her journalism and essays, Didion became a household name with her writing on US society. As a standout female figure in the male-dominant new journalism movement, alongside Tom Wolfe, Truman Capote and Gay Tazzle, Didion cast her precise, clear, detached eye both over American society and her own life in writing what was collected in books including Slouching Towards Bethlehem, Her Journey Through the Promise and Dissolution of California's 60s culture, and The White Album, which began in typically a comical style with We Tell Ourselves Stories in Order to Live. We have kind of evolved into a society where grieving is totally hidden. It doesn't take place in our family, it takes place not at all, she told the Associated Press in 2005 after publishing The Year of Magical Thinking in an account of losing her husband, John Gregory Doom. Didion spent her later years in New York, but she was shaped by her native state of California, which she called a hologram of dematerialized as I drives through it. A place, she once wrote, belongs forever to whoever claims it hardest, remembers it most obsessively, wrenches it from itself, shapes it, renders it, loves it so radically, and he remakes it in his own image. Famous for her detached, sometimes elegant tone, Didion returned to the themes of alienation and isolation throughout her career, whether she was exploring her own grief after the death of Dune in the follow-up final of The Year of the Magical Thinking, the emptiness of Hollywood life in the novel Play It As It Lays, or expats caught up in the Central America politics in her novel A Book of Common Prayer. She was highly protective of her work, never telling even close friends of the subject of her writing until it was ready to publish. Nobody writes better English prose than Joan Didion, literacy critic John Leonard wrote. Try to rearrange one of her sentences and you've realised that the sentence was inevitable a hologram. On her most recent collection of selected essays, Let Me Tell You What I Mean, The Guardian reviewer wrote, Didion has established a way of narrating that focuses not so much on the events as the subtext, atmospheres and perceptions. She is usually present in her essays as a voice rather than a character, observer rather than a participant, though the boundaries regularly blur. After her death was announced, tributes poured in from across the spectrum of politics and literature. California Governor Gavin Newsom said Didion was peerless in her capacity to write about life, loss, love and society, easily the best writer in California. Her ability to put the tapestry of California and the times into words made her treasure for her generations and generations to come. Author Susan Orlean called Didion my idol and inspiration. Didion was one of the country's most trenchant writers and an abstract of observance, Penguin Random House and its imprint Knopf said in a statement. Shelley Wagner, Didion's editor and Knopf since in the early 90s, told The Guardian the author was masterful and fearless. She always seemed able to hear and see what other journalists missed, and her range was broad from California rock and roll to US culture and politics, Central America to memoir. Her writings is timelessly original, precedent and unexpected. Born in Sacramento in 1934, Didion spent her early childhood out of school, with her father's job in the Army Air Corps taking her family all over the country. Didion was a nervous child and a tendency to headaches, but began her path early, starting her first notebook when she was 5. In a 2003 interview with The Guardian, she recalled an incident when she was 10. While writing a story about a woman who killed herself by walking into the ocean, she wanted to know what it would feel like so I could describe it, and almost drowned on California beach. She never told her parents. I think the adults were playing cards. In 1956, after majoring the English literature at the University of California, Berkeley, she won Vogue's writing contest at age 21, which led to a 7-year stint working in the magazine's office in New York. There she met June. They were married when she was 29, and between New York and Los Angeles, she began to mix with many famous contemporaries who would become friends, colleagues and rivals. Sylvia Plath, Roman Polanski, Janis Joplin, who crashed a house party, Christopher Isherwood, who called her Mrs. Misery in his diaries, Warren Beatty, and Natalie Wood, who shared her clothes with Didion. In 1963, her first book was published, a novel Run River. In 1966, Didion and June relocated to Los Angeles and adopted a baby girl, Quintana Roo, named after the Mexican state. Her first collection of essays, Slouching Towards Bethlehem, was published in 1968. With its title essay about Harold Ashby's hippie community, the collection was established Didion's voice as exceptional. Reviewing it for the New York Times, Dan Wakefield called Didion one of the least celebrated and most talented writers of my own generation. Didion followed it up with her novel about life in Hollywood, Play It As It Lays, which she later adapted into a screenplay with June. The couple often worked together on screenplays, including the 1976 film A Star Is Born. The smattering of fiction would follow over the next 2 decades: A Book of Poem and Prayer, 1977, Democracy, 1984, and The Last Thing He Wanted, 1996, but non-fiction dominated. Her second essay collection, The White Album, 1979, contained her most famous line, "We tell ourselves stories in order to live." In 1983 came Salvador, a book-length essay about a trip she took to El Salvador with June. Miami, 1987, about the city's Cuban expat community. After Henry, 1992, a collection dedicated to Didion's editor, Henry Robbins. A Political Fictions, 2001, which spanned the elections of the US presidents George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush. Over the decades, the diminutive Didion built her own mythology. More than one interviewer noted her quietness and frail frame with surprise. Her elegant style and interest in fashion, fostered at Vogue, also saw her revered as a symbol of cool. At the age of 80, she became the face of French fashion house Celine. From the 80s onwards, Didion focused on politics, coining the term the permanent political class, to describe the fraternity of media, politicians, and strategies that shape the self-image of the US. After Clinton's impeachment, she wrote, "No one who would ever pass through an American high school could have ever watched William Jefferson Clinton running in for office in 1992 and failed to recognize the familiar priority sexuality of the proverbial adolescent." Among Washington journalists, she wrote, "What fairness has often come to mean as a scrupulous passivity, an agreement to cover the story not as it is, but occurring as it is present, which is to say it is as manufactured." When June died of a heart attack in 2003, Didion began writing The Year of Magical Thinking, an exploration of her grief at his death while their daughter Quintana was severely ill in hospital. Unsparingly documenting the results, strange habits such as keeping June's shoes for when he came back, the book won her a Pulitzer Prize. Months after it came out in 2005, Quintana died from acute pancreatitis, aged 39, which Didion would write about in her 2011 reflection on aging and parenting, Blue Lights. When she was presented with her National Medal of Arts and the National Humanitarians Medal in 2012, Barack Obama told guests, "I'm surprised she hasn't already gotten this award." In her later years, Didion wrote less. Her most recent project was as the subject of Joan Didion, The Center Will Not Hold, a 2018 Netflix documentary made by her nephew, Griffin Dume. Her final book of original material, South and West, was a collection of her notes while traveling around Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana in the 1970s. When it was released in 2017, it was marketed as a take on Donald Trump's voter base. Talking to The Guardian, Didion said, "I suppose the crisis in American politics was behind everything I was thinking, whether or not I knew it, I was thinking about it. These things have always a way of creeping in. I think we are living through the scariest of times." This footnote was added on 24th of December 2021. South and West was Joan Didion's last book of original material. The subsequent Let Me Tell You What I Mean comprised reprints of articles. Thanks for listening. For more celebrity news, please like, comment, and subscribe.